Hey everyone, I'm Fred Ranger and I hope you're doing good. Welcome back to the channel. Man, I've been so busy doing a lot of things, including traveling and a new gig. I actually now work for a music company out of Montreal. It's called LEICA. It's very cool. I'll actually put a link down below because I think there's a lot of musicians who are following me, and LEICA is a great product that offers musicians some tools, some of the best tools, including some AI-driven tools, but also the best plugins, mastering, and so on and so forth. So I don't want this to turn into an ad for my new job, but I think, some of you guys out there are musicians and you might be interested. That's the first shameless plug. And the second shameless plug is one that I'm actually kind of proud of because, we do work, we travel, we take photos, we do professional work, and we share our work. And once it starts to get noticed by people that you're looking up to, or by people that you're like, wow, this is pretty much a photography community, a legit photography community, not just Instagram or not just instant gratification you get like here on YouTube and so on and so forth. Legit company that supports creators and actually provides creators with tools. So the guys at Blurb actually reached out and they wanted to know more about my second zine that I published through their platform because they wanted to feature it as staff pick. I was like, me? You want to feature my work on Blurb website as staff pick? Very, very humbling experience. I've never had a big company like Blurb reach out, so very humbly I said yes, if you want to do it. So they did, and so it's on their website. If you want to know a little bit more about the backstory behind that zine that I published through the platform, and that's now featured as staff pick on the Blurb website. I'll put a link directly to the Blurb website and the best way to support the work I do and the podcast that I run called the Visual Storytelling Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please do so. And this YouTube channel where we talk a little bit more about the gear, please go see the link. And if you are interested, there is a digital version and a actually physical version like this one that you can buy directly on the website. So with that out of the way, literally, let's talk about today's subject, the reason why you click on this video, and it is about some of the latest and greatest packages that came in from Fujifilm Canada. So thank you, Fujifilm Canada. Not a sponsored video. Fujifilm actually was kind enough to provide me with the gear and ask me to test it, and if I had some thoughts, I could share it, and this is what I'm doing right now. I had this camera for about a month and a half, so again, this is not a final review, this is not an in-depth review, but more of a shooting experience, and I think I've have enough experience with the Fujifilm cameras. I've been shooting for 11, 12 years on Fuji cameras to be able to give you my thoughts and probably some of the questions you might have about this system, and also a lens that's pretty new also, and a little accessory that some of the vloggers out there might enjoy. So without further ado, the fastest unboxing on YouTube. Here you go. Huh? Isn't that a beautiful unboxing? A bit tired of those boxes being open and a sexy song playing in the background. I'm guilty of doing that in the past. I thought here there was no reason to do it. So I am talking about the Fujifilm X-S20, and this is the proud successor of the X-S10. I actually had an X-S10 for the longest time, and I really enjoyed a lot of things about the X-S10, but I think they just made this camera even better. And I'm gonna talk to you about some of the pros that I see with this camera, some of the cons, but also, how you can actually rig it so it becomes a vlogging or / traveling video and photo camera. First off, I want to talk about the pros of this camera. I really enjoyed shooting with it. I'll put some photos and videos as B-roll as I talk about this camera because, it's one thing to hear me talk about it, but seeing it in action is actually better. But first off, what I really like about this camera is actually the size of it. So some people might think that this is smaller than the XS2H, and that's very, very true, or the XH2, but it keeps the inspiration in the same form factor. So that deep grip that you're seeing here is very, very well done. And if I remember correctly, it's actually better than the XS10. So it really feels at home when you have it in your hand. I actually personally enjoy these type of bodies on the Fujifilm side of things. The XT series is a great series, but I always thought that the grip was a bit shallow and was a bit narrow in terms of comparing it to the XH and now the XS line of camera. So really, really enjoy this in terms of the build quality. Also, it doesn't feel cheap. Again, this is not the flagship camera, and for the price that you're paying for, you will not have the same quality as the XH series or even the XT series, but I thought that for the price, this was well built and the button feels, Very, very, very sturdy. Some of you might actually even go to the extent of saying that it feels better than the X-T5. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about the quality of the buttons on the X-T5. I mean, I've shot it. There's a video right here about the X-T5. I think it's about the same, to be quite honest. But I actually like where the buttons are placed. So this is my second point about this camera. First one is the build quality and the grip, and also second point is where the buttons are situated. The X-H2S that I was rocking until very, very recently for video, I think it was a hit and miss with the placement of the buttons, but here it really, really feels natural when I look at the way they've laid it out. So for me, you know, you've got your on-off button right here that is placed in the right place, and the record button that's actually just right here next to the on-off switch. So I'm not bumping it, I'm not, you know, pressing on record when I don't want to do it. And then there's the ISO button that's right here that I really enjoy the placement of because I can just hit it and then change my ISO. But I will say that I'm actually using these wheels and reassign them. I think by default, the wheel on the left is for film simulation, you know, which can be good in a pinch if you want to change them. But for me, I like to change my ISO more rapidly than having to press a button and then change it. So I assign this to ISO and I assign this to exposure comp when I am in aperture priority or shutter speed priority. So I really like the placement of the buttons. The wheel feels actually pretty good. Actually, I will say that it might be a little bit better than the X-T5. For some reason, the X-T5 buttons or wheels feel a bit more plasticky than what we're used to, you know, use on the X-T and X-H and now X-S series. So I don't know, Fuji, maybe you want to just revise that in the X-T6, just give us back the X-T3 and even X-T4 quality of buttons. But this is about the X-T or the X-S20. So really like the swivel screen, of course, to do the vlogging style, and I think this is what this camera is intended for. There's even a vlogging mode that you're gonna see in a couple seconds because I've used it just to try it. I would not use it in a regular scenario where I can set up my shot. I prefer to control everything, but it does add a bit of a background blur and all these great things that you're looking for when you want to do cinematic / vlog shots. So overall, really enjoy this camera. It's all about the grip for me. It's about the portability. You throw it in your bag with a pancake lens and it's pretty much good to go, and you don't feel it. You don't feel the weight of it in your backpack. Another thing that I really find interesting is when you pair it with something like this little gizmo, and I did mention in my intro that this was more intended towards vloggers, and this is actually, they're taking a little bit of a page from Sony. This is the Sony one. This is the accessory that enables you to basically put the camera on a tripod. So this is the first function of it. So let me do that right now. Screw it in like that. So instead of having, you know, like a typical tripod like a Joby GorillaPod or anything like that, you throw that on there. So it gives you that tripod mount if you want to do like a tabletop type of scenario. So let me put the new lens on it just so you can see the actual, there you go, new package. So you got your wide angle, you've got your camera sitting on a tripod, so very sturdy. I like that. But not only do you get a, you know, interesting tripod that can turn into a vlogging stick if you do like this. That's pretty much how I would use it and how I did use it to test the vlogging capability. But you get these buttons right here where you can activate the record button, so you don't have to press on top. It's actually right here on the stick itself. You also have that very cool function of zooming in and out. I did use it a couple times. It does zoom in when you have the power zoom type of lenses like the f4. They have a zoom lens that have that power zoom feature in it, so it will activate that. But you can also use it to crop in a little bit digitally if you activate that function. And then you've got your you know, Bluetooth button, but you can also take a still, so it's very useful for those selfie when you travel. Really enjoyed this little accessory. Like I said, I'm using it on some of my Sony cameras, especially for the ZV-E1 and back then other Sony cameras I had, and I thought it was a great addition. If you are marketing this as a vlogging camera, these type of accessories are always welcome. So that's my initial thoughts on the Fujifilm X-S20. Who is this for? Well, it is for people who don't necessarily need all the bells and whistles of an X-H2 XH2S, XH2, even the X-T5. It's for people who actually want something compact, something very high quality. This is the same sensor as the one in the X-T3, and nothing to say about this sensor. It was a great sensor. It still is today. It's also a camera that enables you to have that famous grip that you kind of have on the XH2 series, but in a very, very smaller package. Really like that. It's also a camera, a great entry-level camera on the Fujifilm side. If you want to dabble with film simulation, you've got all your film simulation. You even have those custom dials that you can program in, both for video and stills, so you don't have to fiddle around in the menus. You can just program everything, store it in C1, C2, C3, C4. So you've got 4 different custom settings, and then you can just go about your day and shoot with different settings. For me, I used it very efficiently for 24p when I do some vlogging stuff, regular vlogging stuff, and then I go into 60 in my C2 to do the slow motion, and then C3 would be kind of a more of an all automatic type thing when I just want to flip it on and start shooting. And then my C4 would be a photography setting where I get my film simulation that I like, and also shooting in RAW and JPEG. So again, very great package that we have here. This is by no means a technical review, a specs review. You can find that on the internet. I find those very boring. So for me, I'd rather show you some of the footage. I tried something interesting in this one. I actually took the super wide angle 8mm because I wanted to test that lens that is fairly new in the Fujifilm ecosystem, and I shot a vlog on it. So of course, you know, when you get a 8mm, and this is an f3.5, when you get that lens on that sensor, it will distort the edges when you do vlogging. So I don't recommend using something like that. I would actually recommend something more like this lens, which is the Tamron. This is the 17 to 70, which is way more, you know, adapted for that type of vlogging that I do. But I wanted to test it. I like to try stuff and to report back on it, so you can judge for yourself if you want to try that lens for vlogging. But more importantly, it was great to do photography. I'm going to throw a couple shots on there where you can really get everything that you see in front of you and even more in the frame. So it's good for those establishing shots, for those you know, street photography, maybe if you want to do some crazy arrangement with people, you know, a bit everywhere in the frame. But more importantly, of course, landscape photography. I think this is what this lens is intended for. Maybe real estate, but you have to do a lot of corrections in Lightroom afterwards to correct those edges. That's it, guys. This is my first impression of the Fujifilm X-S20. I think it's a great camera. If you have any questions about this camera, please let me know down below. And if you want to see more reviews like that, please hit that like button and that subscribe button. Don't forget that bell notification so you know every time I post something up on this channel. And of course, I really invite you to do 2 things. Subscribe to my podcast, which is the Visual Storytelling Podcast. It's on all the podcast platforms that you can imagine. And also, if you want to, you can support the channel by buying my zine. That's actually, like I said in the beginning, has been identified as staff pick with the Blurb editorial team. Be happy, enjoy life, and enjoy your Fujifilm X-S20. Cheers.